Hello there. In this video lesson we're going to show you how you can create a 5mm connector. The connector is this bit here, which can be used with either pendants or earrings. Now when we say 5mm, we're saying a default setting of internal diameter of 5mm. So if you start Fluid Designer up, now there are some built-in connectors with Fluid Designer. If you just click on Group Library and go to 3D Templates Connectors, so there's 1.5mm, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4. So if we just drag and drop the 4 onto the workspace, so what we're saying is that the internal diameter of this is 4mm, which is what you can see there more or less. If we measure from center to center, you'll see that that's 5mm. So what that means is that this thickness here is 1. Well, we can see that here as the cross-section diameter. Now if we change this to 1 by 1, what we're saying is that that thickness is 1 and that's 1 deep. So 1 by 4 connector, 1 by 6 connector. But look what happens if we actually switch to a 2 by 2. Notice that the hole now is no longer 4mm because this is thicker. So this is only a 4mm diameter hole if this wall thickness is kept at 1mm. So that's an important point to actually note. But what we're going to do in this lesson is to see how we can actually create this object here. Well, if we delete the bevel object around it, what you see that you're left with is this circle, and there's actually also a line there which is hidden. Let me just switch off the snap. It's actually hidden by the grid line. So there's a line here and there is a circle. Now this is actually a NURBS circle, and this is what's called a NURBS path, a line. So that's what we want to create in this lesson. So if we just go to File and New, and we'll just move this panel back there. So what do we want to do? Well, we want to add a NURBS circle. Now if we just open up the Properties panel, we're going to call this a 5mm connector, and what that means is that the internal diameter, when there's a thickness of 1mm put on it, the internal diameter should be 5mm. So if we've got a thickness of 1, we need to add that on to get to the center of the circle. So 5 plus 1 is 6. So if we enter in 6mm there, as if I enter in just 6 as the dimension there, and 6 as the dimension there. Now whenever you scale a curve, you must do Control A and apply the scale. Otherwise you'll have problems with 3D printing. Okay, so there's our circle. I'm just going to move it up slightly. So we now need to add a line to this, and the line is called a path. So we construct a path. Now if we just zoom in there, you can see that this is going in the wrong direction. We want it to be going down. So we need to rotate this, and the axis we need to rotate it is the axis that's going into the straw, coming out of the screen as we look at it there. That's the Z axis, the blue arrow. So if I just view from the top again, so if we press R on the keyboard, Z to restrict the rotation about the Z axis, and if we type 90 degrees, that will rotate it about 90 degrees, and we can see that over here in the Properties panel. Now you can apply this rotation, you can do Control A and apply this rotation. Not going to make any difference in this instance because we're going to join this to the NURBS circle. Now I didn't plan this, but it has actually just met the NURBS circle at that particular point there. If it didn't meet, then you would have to adjust it up or down. say I didn't actually plan that in this instance, I just put that a couple of millimeters above the center. Now we're going to join these two together, and the order in which you do it is slightly important because we've already named this circle as a 5mm connector. So the best thing to do is to highlight the path, which we haven't named anything, hold down the shift key, click on the circle and go to Tools, Object Tools and join the two together, and that will just maintain the name. So there's our connector. Now we haven't got any bevel objects to use with this connector at the moment, but remember up here in 3D templates connectors we have got some pre-built ones, so we can use the objects that are in those and append them to this particular file. So we do that by going to File and Append, and we just go up through the menu system until we get to the Groups folder. We want 3D templates connectors, and we can use one of these wire connectors. So it's a wire connector with a 4mm diameter hole. I'll use that one, and it's always the objects that we want to append. Now I'm just going to append the 1mm ones in this instance. I'm not going to append the rest of them. So if we append, I've just held down the shift key and clicked on each of those to select them, and so if we append those from the library, actually I'm going to select the last one as well, this cross-section diameter 1mm, that's a round one. Okay, so those objects are now in my outliner window here. Now they're not in view, they're hidden, so we could switch them on, but we don't want to because we're not going to use them in that way. So what we do is we highlight the 5mm connector itself. Now if we apply this cross section, the rounded one, we can do that by going to Bevel Object and Cross Section Diameter 1mm, and if we then click on the interactive ruler and measure the inside here, this should have an internal diameter, which it does, of 5mm. Okay, and the reason for that is because we did 6mm here, but the thickness that we're applying is 1mm, so it's 1/2 millimeter here to the center, 1/2 millimeter to the center here, plus another 4mm gives me a total of 5mm. Sorry, plus another, let me get this right again, this is 5mm connector, and we've got 1/2 millimeter here, so that's 5.5mm, 1/2 millimeter here, so that's a total of 6mm, and that's what we actually created originally for this circle. So if we measure across from here to here, we've got 6mm. So I can then set a different bevel object, 1mm by 1, 1mm by 2, etc., etc. Now, something to take note of is that in the Show the Curve Data Information icon, there are a couple of boxes here that we could tick. Now, if we just look at this bit at the end here, if I tick Fill Caps, notice that does fill in. Now, depending on the kind of object you're building, you may want to fill that in, fill the end cap. In this instance we don't, because we will use these connectors, adding them to other objects to create earrings and pendants, so this will fit inside another object, so you don't need that filled. You do, however, need this ticked, because if we remove the tick from there, that part of the circle disappears. Cyclic U is basically completes the circle, the NURB circle that we use to create part of this connector. So if you don't have that selected, the circle will be incomplete. So that must be ticked. So we don't need that one ticked in this instance for a connector, but we must have this one ticked. Okay, so there's our 5mm connector. And this is an example where you would actually want to save this. So if we go to View and Top, and if I press the Home key on the keyboard, that just positions it nicely. And if I just move that down and just go to the top of that one, if I now go to File and Save, so this, we don't want to 3D print this one, or actually I'll set this to cross section diameter 1, the rounded one. So if we go to File and Save, and let's go to the 3D Templates Connectors one. This is a wire connector, but notice it's not a 4mm diameter hole, it's a 5mm diameter hole. So we can just change the file name there, and we save this as a Blender file. And if we go to File and New, and then if we go to the 3D Templates Connectors, that's the one that we've just created, and that object can now be dragged and dropped onto the workspace, or it can be appended to be used with earrings and pendants, etc. So this is one example where you would use File and Save. Okay, so that's it for this video. Thank you.